Honey, do you have cash or are you going to pay with a card? Chastity's voice cut through the air like a sharpened blade. 12 pairs of eyes were fixed on me, 12 people who had just devoured lobster, imported salmon, and wines that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. 12 mouths were now waiting for my answer, their smiles not quite reaching their eyes. I smiled back. I opened my purse slowly, and then I said something no one expected to hear. But let me tell you how I got to that moment. Sitting in a downtown Atlanta restaurant where the bill for a single table was approaching $8,000. Welcome to my channel. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and gave my video a like. Now, let's jump into the story. I'm sure you'll enjoy it till the end. It all started 3 days earlier. Darius, my son, appeared at the door of the tiny converted storage room where I now lived. Yes, a storage room, because I no longer lived in my house. Well, technically, it was still my house, but that's another story I'll tell you in a moment. Darius knocked twice. "Mama, you in there?" His voice sounded cheerful, almost forced. I opened the door and there he was, with that smile I'd known since he was a baby. But now that smile was accompanied by something else, something I had learned to recognize over the past 8 months. Need. "Mama, I've got some wonderful news." He walked in without waiting for an invitation. He looked around the 10 by 10-foot room where I now spent my days. A twin bed, a chair, a coat rack with 4 dresses, a window overlooking the alley. "We're having a family dinner. Something intimate? Just special to celebrate Chastity's mom's birthday. Loretta's birthday," he said. Loretta Whitaker, my daughter-in-law's mother, a woman I had seen exactly 3 times in 2 years. "It's just a regular dinner, Mama. Nothing extravagant, but it would mean a lot to Chastity if you were there." Something tightened in my chest. Family dinner. It had been so long since I'd heard those words directed at me with real affection. "When is it?" I asked, even though I already knew I would say yes. I always said yes when Darius asked me for anything. That's how it had been my whole life. This Saturday, at 8 o'clock, at the Gilded Lily, that French place downtown. The Gilded Lily. I had walked past that place once. The red velvet curtains, the chandeliers sparkling through the glass, people going in wearing coats that cost more than a used car. "Are you sure, son? That place must be really expensive." Darius laughed, that laugh that used to be genuine when he was a child. "Mama, don't you worry about that. It's a special occasion. Besides, we're family." Family. That word echoed in my ears long after Darius left. I sat on the bed and looked out the window. The alley was dark, even though it was barely 6 in the evening. From there, I could hear the noises of the main house, my house, the house I had bought with 40 years of work as a seamstress, the house where I'd raised Darius alone after Hector left us, the house that had 3 large bedrooms, a yard with old pecan trees, a kitchen with tiles I had personally chosen one by one, the house that was no longer mine. 8 months had passed since that afternoon. Chastity and Darius had arrived with papers. "Mama, we need to talk about something important." They sat across from me at the dining room table, my dining room. Chastity pulled documents from her elegant handbag. "Look, Mother Evelyn, Darius and I have been looking into the new tax laws. If anything were to happen to you, Darius would lose this house. The government would take almost everything." Darius nodded, taking my hand. "Mama, the solution is simple. If you put the house in my name now, we save all those problems. It's just paperwork. You keep living here just like always. Nothing changes. We're just protecting your legacy." I was 65, but I wasn't foolish. "And if I put it in your name, it really doesn't change anything for me?" Chastity smiled. That smile that showed all her perfect white teeth. "Of course not, Mother Evelyn. This is your house. It always will be. It's just a legal formality, a protection." I looked at Darius, my son, my only child, the boy I had raised alone, the man who was now looking at me with pleading eyes. "All right, if you say it's best." I signed. I signed because I trusted. I signed because he was my son. I signed because I thought blood meant something. 2 weeks after I signed, Chastity knocked on my bedroom door. "Mother Evelyn, I need to talk to you." She walked in and sat on my bed without asking. "Look, I have exciting news. Darius and I are going to remodel the house. We're going to make it beautiful, but there's going to be a lot of noise and dust during the work. We don't want it to affect you." I nodded, confused. "So, we thought you could stay in the converted storage room for a few months, just while we finish up. It has everything you need, a bed, a small bathroom. You'll be very comfortable." The converted storage room. That 10 by 10 foot space I had used to store boxes and tools. "For how long?" I asked. Chastity shrugged. 2-3 months maximum. You know how these things go, but it'll be worth it. The house is going to look gorgeous." Those 2 months turned into 8. The remodeling was never finished. There was always something more to do. There was always a reason why I couldn't return to my room. And little by little, without me realizing exactly when, I stopped being the owner of the house and became the tenant of the tiny room out back. But Saturday arrived, and I dressed in my best clothes. A wine-colored dress I had sewn myself years ago, black shoes I had polished until they shone. I styled my gray hair in a simple bun. I looked at myself in the small, cracked mirror hanging over the sink. A 65-year-old woman stared back, wrinkles around her eyes, hands calloused from decades of sewing. But there was still dignity in that face, still strength. Darius picked me up at 7:30. We drove in silence. I looked out the window at the illuminated streets. "Mama, I just want you to know tonight is important to Chastity. Her family is going to be there. Please, just be yourself." Be myself, as if I were some kind of problem that needed to be controlled. We arrived at the Gilded Lily, and my stomach clenched. The place was even more elegant than I remembered. A doorman in a maroon uniform opened the car door. Inside, everything was golden light and immaculate white tablecloths. Darius led me to a long table in the back of the main dining room, a table where 11 people were already seated. Chastity stood up when she saw us. She was wearing an ivory dress that probably cost more than 3 months of my old housing payment. "Mother Evelyn, so glad you made it." She hugged me, but it was one of those empty hugs, without warmth, without real meaning. "Come, sit here." Chastity pointed to a chair at the corner of the table. The chair farthest from the head, the chair where you put the guests who don't matter much. I sat down slowly, looked around the table, and counted mentally. 12 people in total. Loretta was at the head, in a champagne dress and a pearl necklace that glittered under the lights. Next to her, Chastity's 2 sisters, whom I had never seen before. Then 3 cousins, an uncle, 2 young nephews who wouldn't stop looking at their phones, Darius and Chastity, and me, the only one who didn't truly belong to this gathering. "Well, now that we're all here, let's order." Chastity snapped her fingers, and a waiter in an impeccable black jacket appeared. "Bring the wine list first and the full menu." The waiter nodded and disappeared like a ghost. I watched everything with wide eyes. The crystal glasses, the silver cutlery, the cloth napkins folded into the shape of swans. Everything sparkled. Everything cost money. Everything was too much for a simple family dinner. The wines arrived first. Bottles with French labels I couldn't read. The waiter showed them off as if they were treasures. "This is a Chateau Margaux from 2010, and this, a Romanée Conti." Chastity didn't even look at the prices. "Bring 3 bottles of the first and 2 of the second." I swallowed hard. I had seen wines like that in magazines. I knew a single bottle could cost hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands. Then the menus arrived, thick pages of creamy paper with gold lettering. I opened mine and my hands trembled slightly. Foie gras, lobster, filet mignon. Every dish had a price tag that made my monthly pension seem like a joke. "Evelyn, do you know what you'll be ordering?" Loretta's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. It was the first time she had spoken directly to me all night. "I'm still looking." Loretta smiled. A kind smile, different from her daughter's. "Try the lobster. They say it's prepared divinely here." One by one, everyone ordered. Chastity asked for the most expensive steak. Her sisters ordered lamb with black truffle. The cousins ordered seafood. The nephews wanted pasta with caviar. Darius ordered a cut of meat that cost $200. When it was my turn, my voice sounded small. "Just a Caesar salad, please." Chastity laughed, that laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "Oh, Mother Evelyn, don't be modest. We're celebrating. Order something good." Everyone was looking at me, waiting. "All right, the salmon then." The waiter wrote it down and disappeared again. The food began to arrive, plate after plate, course after course. I watched in amazement as the table filled with food that looked like art, towers of seafood, meats that were rare in the center, sauces that formed perfect designs on the plates. And the wine flowed, bottles emptied, and new ones appeared. Chastity laughed loudly. Her sisters talked about their latest European vacations. The cousins argued about luxury cars. I ate my salmon in silence, trying to become invisible. "Mama, are you okay? You're very quiet." Darius leaned toward me. His breath smelled of expensive wine. "I'm fine, son. Just tired." He nodded and returned to his conversation with Chastity's uncle about investments and stocks. I kept eating slowly. Every bite tasted like guilt. Every sip of water reminded me that I shouldn't be here, that this wasn't my world, that I was the woman who lived in a 10 by 10 foot room and received $200 a month to survive. Because that's what they gave me, $200. After I signed over the house, after they moved me to the little room, Chastity appeared one morning with an envelope. "Mother Evelyn, Darius and I have been talking. We know you're no longer working and your pension is small, so we decided to give you a monthly allowance for your expenses." I opened the envelope, 10 $20 bills. "That's so you can buy what you need, food, personal items, you know." I looked at the money. $200 a month to eat, to live, to exist in the back of my own house. "And is this enough?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Chastity shrugged. "Well, you don't have to pay rent or utilities. The house costs a lot to maintain. The water, the electricity, the gas, that all comes out of our pocket. So $200 is fair." Fair. That word had haunted me ever since. Was it fair to live on $200 a month in a house I had paid for? Was it fair to eat rice and beans while they ate lobster? Was it fair to watch them remodel my kitchen, my living room, my backyard, while I watched from the window of my 10 by 10 foot prison? The desserts arrived. Towers of chocolate, creams with exotic fruits, artisanal ice cream with edible gold flakes. Yes, gold. I ordered a simple black coffee, no sugar, because that's how I had learned to drink it in these months. No luxuries, no extras, just the necessary to survive. Loretta looked at me from her place at the head of the table. There was something in her eyes, something I couldn't decipher at the moment, curiosity perhaps or concern. But then Chastity ordered more wine, and the moment passed. The dinner ended, the plates were cleared, conversations grew louder with the alcohol. I just wanted to go home. Well, to the little room, because that was the only thing I could call home. Now Darius was laughing with the cousins. Chastity hugged her sisters. Everyone was happy. Everyone but me. Then the waiter appeared with a silver tray, and on that tray, a black leather folder. The check. The waiter placed it in front of Loretta first. She opened it, looked at the number, and her eyebrows rose slightly. Then she did something I didn't expect. She closed the folder and slid it across the table directly toward me. Everyone stopped talking. Everyone turned to look. The black leather folder rested in front of me like a coiled snake. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to see the number, but Chastity spoke, and her voice sliced the silence like a sharp knife. "Honey, do you have cash or are you going to pay with a card?" she said. She said honey, but the word sounded empty, cold, calculated. I looked up and met her gaze. Her smile was perfect, too perfect, as if she had practiced this moment in front of the mirror. "Excuse me?" My voice came out weaker than I wanted. Chastity chuckled softly. "The check. Mother Evelyn, how are you going to pay? Cash or card?" My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I opened the folder with trembling hands, and there was the number, $342.68. $342.68. Almost 2 years of my $200 monthly allowance. Almost everything I had left in my savings account after selling my car last month because I couldn't afford to keep it anymore. $8,000 for a dinner I hadn't asked for a celebration I didn't belong to, for food and wine that others had enjoyed while I ate salmon and drank water. "Well, Mother Evelyn, we're waiting." Chastity's voice again, now with a tone of impatience. I looked around the table. Everyone was watching me. Chastity's sisters with mocking smiles, the cousins with curiosity. The nephews had put away their phones to watch the show. Darius was looking at his plate. He wouldn't look at me. My son couldn't meet my eyes. And then I knew. I knew this had been planned. I had been invited not as family, but as the fool who would pay the bill. I smiled. I don't know where that smile came from. Maybe from 40 years of silently enduring humiliations. Maybe from 8 months of living in a tiny room without complaining. Maybe from 65 years of being too kind, too understanding, too good. I opened my purse slowly. Everyone leaned forward, expecting to see wads of bills or a credit card, but I pulled out something different, something no one expected. I took out my old driver's license, the one that still had the address of my house, the one that was now legally Darius's. I placed it on the black leather folder next to the number that said $342.68. "I don't have money," I said the words slowly, clearly, so that every person at that table would hear them well. "I don't have cash. I don't have a credit card with that limit. In fact, I have exactly $10 in my bank account." I paused. "And do you know why I only have $10? The silence fell over the table like a heavy blanket. Chastity stopped smiling. Darius kept staring at his plate as if it were the most interesting thing in the world. Loretta watched me with narrowed eyes. I continued, "I have $10 because 8 months ago I gave my house to my son, a house I bought with 40 years of work, a house with 3 bedrooms and a backyard, a house valued at over $300,000. I gave it to him because I was told it was for protection, for taxes, for my own good." I raised my voice only slightly. I wasn't yelling, but every word came out with the weight of months of accumulated silence. And after giving them my house, after signing the papers they put in front of me, they moved me to a converted storage room, 10 feet by 10 feet, 1 bed, 1 chair, a window overlooking the alley. They told me it was temporary, just while they remodeled. That was 8 months ago. And do you know how much they give me a month to live on? I paused. No one was breathing. $200. Chastity's sisters looked at each other. The cousins stopped smiling. The nephews put their phones away. Loretta straightened up in her chair, her face shifting from confusion to something darker. Understanding, perhaps, or contained fury. $200 a month, I repeated. For food, for hygiene products, to exist. While you, I gestured to the empty plates, the empty wine bottles, the half-eaten desserts, while you spend $8,000 on a single dinner. Chastity found her voice first. "Mother Evelyn, you are exaggerating. We give you a place to live. You don't pay rent. You don't pay utilities." Her voice sounded nervous now, defensive. "A place to live?" I laughed, but it wasn't a cheerful laugh. It was a bitter one that burned my throat. "You call that tiny room a place to live? The space where I stored brooms and boxes, where the sun never shines, where the bathroom is so small I can barely turn around?" "Mama, please." Darius finally spoke. He finally looked at me. His eyes were red. I don't know if it was from the wine or from shame. "Don't do this here. We can talk at home." At home? How ironic. At home, Darius? In my house, which is no longer mine? In the little room where you locked me up as if I were a piece of old furniture in the way? My voice cracked a little, but I didn't cry. I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Loretta stood up. Her chair scraped against the wooden floor with a loud sound that made everyone jump. Chastity. Her voice was low, dangerous. Is this true? Chastity opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Mama, she's exaggerating. We take care of her. We give her money. We feed her. Loretta took a step toward her daughter. I asked you if it is true. You have her living in a converted storage room? You give her only $200 a month? After she gave you her house? It was an old house, Mama. It needed work, and she's older now. She couldn't keep up a house like that. Chastity tried to justify herself, but her words sounded hollow, empty. Older? Loretta laughed, but it was humorless. Evelyn is 65. I am 68. Am I too old to live in my own house, too? Silence again. But this was different. This was the silence before the storm. Chastity, I asked you a question. Loretta wasn't yelling. She didn't need to yell. Her voice had that authority only mothers can have. You took her house. You have her living like a servant on her own property. Chastity looked at Darius, seeking support, but Darius was still staring at his plate. Coward. My son was a coward. We didn't take it. She gave it to us. She signed the papers voluntarily. Voluntarily? My voice came out stronger than I expected. You call lying to me voluntarily? Telling me it was for protection? Promising me nothing would change? I stood up too. My legs were shaking, but I held myself steady. I signed because I trusted, because he was my son, because I thought family meant something. I looked directly at Darius. I was wrong. One of the cousins coughed uncomfortably. One of Chastity's sisters muttered something about going to the restroom, but Loretta raised a hand and everyone stayed still. Nobody moves. Nobody leaves here until this is resolved. She turned to me, her eyes so much like Chastity's, but with something more. Compassion, humanity. Evelyn, do you have anywhere to go tonight? Any family, any friends? The question caught me by surprise. I thought about my life, my 40 years of work, the friends I'd lost touch with because I was too busy surviving, the family I never had beyond Darius. No, I admitted, and that word hurt more than anything else I had said tonight. I don't have anyone. Loretta nodded as if she had expected that answer. Then you are coming with me to my house tonight, and tomorrow we are going to fix this mess. Chastity went pale. Mama, you can't be serious. Loretta looked at her with an expression I would never have wanted directed at me. Pure disappointment. I am serious. Of course I'm serious. You just invited this woman to an $8,000 dinner, expecting her to pay. A woman you stole her home from. A woman who lives on $200 a month. You thought I would be okay with that? We didn't steal anything. The house is legally in Darius's name. Chastity tried to defend the indefensible. Legality and morality are two different things, daughter, and you know the difference. Loretta took off her pearl necklace. That necklace that had been sparkling all night. She placed it on the table. This is worth $2,000. Pay the bill with this, and then we are going to have a very long conversation about values and decency. The waiter, who had been watching everything from a safe distance, nervously approached, took the necklace, and looked at Loretta. Ma'am, this is more than enough to cover the check. Do you want the change in cash? Loretta interrupted him. The change is for you for having to witness this circus. The waiter nodded and quickly disappeared with the necklace and the check. I sat down again. My legs wouldn't hold me up. Everything was happening too fast. Loretta, a woman I barely knew, was defending me, paying a bill that wasn't hers, offering me a place to stay, and my own son was still sitting in silence, doing nothing. Darius, I said his name softly. Look at me. He slowly raised his eyes. There were tears in them, but I didn't feel pity. I only felt exhaustion. Tomorrow, I'm going to come for my things, the few things they let me keep in that little room, and after that, I don't want to see that house again. My voice was firm now, clear. Not until it's mine again, Or never, whatever has to happen. Darius opened his mouth. Mama, I stopped him with a gesture. No, I don't want to hear excuses anymore. I don't want to hear promises. I just want my dignity back. And if that means losing you, then so be it. The words floated in the air like smoke, heavy, final. Chastity tried to take Darius's hand, but he pulled away. Something had broken in his face. Loretta placed her hand on my shoulder. Let's go, Evelyn. That's enough for tonight. I stood up. I took my small purse. I looked one last time at that whole table, at those 12 people who had witnessed my humiliation and my liberation in the same night. I walked toward the restaurant exit with Loretta by my side. Every step hurt, not from physical exhaustion, but from the weight of what had just passed. I left the table behind. I left Darius behind. I left 8 months of silent humiliation behind. The doorman opened the door for us, and the cold night air hit my face. I took a deep breath. It was the first time in a long time I felt like I could truly breathe. Loretta's car was an elegant black sedan, but not ostentatious. She opened the passenger door for me, a simple gesture that made me feel more human than I had felt in months. I sat down. The seat was soft, comfortable. It smelled of expensive perfume and new leather. Loretta got behind the wheel and started the engine. For the first few minutes, neither of us spoke. Only the sound of the engine and the night traffic filled the space between us. I'm so sorry. Loretta finally broke the silence. Her voice sounded tired, defeated. I had no idea what my daughter was doing to you. If I had known sooner... She paused. She took a deep breath. I should have known. I should have paid attention. I looked out the window. The city lights passed like blurred stars. It's not your fault. You had no way of knowing. I didn't tell anyone either. I was too ashamed to admit that my own son had done this to me. The shame should be theirs, not yours. Loretta turned a corner. We were entering a neighborhood I knew by sight. Large homes, manicured lawns, the kind of place I never thought I would set foot in. Chastity wasn't like this before. Or maybe she was, and I didn't want to see it. She was always ambitious, always wanting more, but I never thought she would be capable of something so cruel. Her voice cracked a little at the end. We arrived at a 2-story house with a cream-colored facade and large windows. Loretta parked in the driveway. It's a lot for one person, she said, as if she had to justify the size of her house. But I like the space. I like being able to walk without bumping into walls. She looked at me meaningfully. I understood the message. She knew what it was like to live in a minuscule space, or at least she could imagine it. We went inside. The house smelled of lavender and cleanliness. The floor was light wood. The walls were painted in soft tones. There were carefully hung paintings, potted plants, a staircase leading up to the second floor. The guest room is upstairs. It has its own bathroom, clean linens, towels, everything you need. Loretta guided me up the stairs. Every step seemed higher than the last, not because of the physical effort, but because of the unreality of it all. The room was 3 times bigger than the little room I had lived in for the past 8 months. A queen bed with an ivory comforter, a dresser with a mirror, an armchair by the window. Curtains that looked like silk. A bathroom with a tub. A tub. I hadn't taken a bath in a tub since they moved me to the little room. There was only a tiny shower where I could barely turn around. Rest. Loretta placed her hand on my shoulder again. We'll talk tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll see what to do. For now, just rest. She left and closed the door softly. I stood in the middle of the room, looking at everything, touching the bed to make sure it was real. I sat on the edge. The mattress was soft. My hands trembled, and then, only then, did I allow the tears to fall. I cried. I cried for the 8 months lost. I cried for the house that had been mine. I cried for the son I had raised and who had betrayed me. I cried until there was nothing left inside. I woke up with the sun streaming through the window. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Then I remembered the restaurant, the check, Loretta, the guest room. I got up and looked at myself in the dresser mirror. A 65-year-old woman with swollen eyes and messy hair stared back. But there was something different, something in her eyes, a spark that had been extinguished for months. Determination. I went downstairs, following the smell of coffee. Loretta was in the kitchen, sitting at a wooden table with a cup in her hands. "Morning. Sleep well?" I nodded, though it was a lie. I had slept little, but I had slept without the noise of the house in the background, without hearing Chastity and Darius walking through what had been my living room, without feeling like an intruder in my own life. "There's coffee, toast, fruit. Help yourself." I poured myself coffee into a white ceramic cup, black, no sugar. Loretta watched me. "Evelyn, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be completely honest with me." She took a sip of her coffee. "When you signed the house papers, did you read everything? Did you understand what you were signing?" I thought back to that day, to the papers Chastity had placed in front of me, to the words I didn't fully understand, to the haste with which they made me sign. "I didn't read everything," I admitted. "Chastity explained that it was for protection, to avoid taxes. She told me nothing would change, that I would still be the owner in spirit, that it was just paperwork." Loretta nodded slowly. "Were there witnesses when you signed?" I tried to remember. "There was a notary public, or someone who claimed to be a notary public, a young man in a gray suit. He came to the house. He was there for less than 20 minutes. He made me sign 3 or 4 different papers." "Do you remember his name?" I shook my head. "No. Chastity called him on the phone. She said it was a favor that he was coming because she knew him." Loretta put her cup down on the table with more force than necessary. "A favor? Of course." She stood up and began pacing the kitchen. "Evelyn, I think what they did to you is not only immoral, I think it might be illegal too." My heart started beating faster. "What do you mean?" Loretta stopped and looked directly at me. "If they made you sign under pressure, without truly explaining what you were signing, without giving you time to seek independent legal advice, that's coercion. And if that notary was someone Chastity knew and didn't properly verify that you understood everything, then the transfer could be invalid." Hope. A dangerous word. But there it was, growing in my chest like a plant after the rain. "How can we find out?" Loretta picked up her phone. "I have a friend. Marcus is an attorney. He specializes in cases of family fraud and elder financial exploitation." Elderly. The word stung a little, but it was technically correct. I was legally a senior citizen. "I'll call him now. He'll tell us what your options are." She dialed a number, spoke in a low voice. I heard loose words: urgent, fraud, possible, property transfer, coercion. When she hung up, she had a determined look. "Marcus says he can see us this afternoon at 3 o'clock, at his office." I looked at the clock on the kitchen wall. It was 9 in the morning. We had 6 hours. "But first," Loretta continued, "we're going to your house. Well, to the house that was yours. You are going to collect your things, all your things, and you are going to do it with your head held high. Understood?" I nodded, even though the thought of returning terrified me. We arrived at the house at 10 o'clock. My house. The house where I had lived for 30 years, where I had raised Darius, where I had sewn thousands of dresses on my old machine, where I had planted the pecan trees that now shaded the yard. Loretta parked in front of the entrance. Darius's car was there, and so was Chastity's. They were both home. "Are you ready?" Loretta asked me. I took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." We rang the doorbell. No one answered. I rang again. Nothing. Then Loretta knocked hard, insistent, like someone who wouldn't leave until the door was opened. Finally, the door opened. Chastity was there, dressed in gray sweatpants and a t-shirt, no makeup, swollen eyes. She had been crying. "What do you want?" Her voice was harsh, defensive. "Evelyn has come for her things," Loretta spoke with authority, "and you are going to let her in now." Chastity looked at both of us. For a moment I thought she would close the door, but then she stepped aside. We entered. The living room was just as I remembered it. Well, not exactly. The furniture had been changed. My old brown sofa had been replaced by a modern beige one. The curtains I had sewn were gone. Now there were minimalist blinds. My wooden coffee table had disappeared. In its place was one of glass and metal. My house, but it no longer felt like my house. "Where's Darius?" I asked. Chastity pointed upstairs. "Still asleep. He drank a lot last night after you left." Of course. My son was sleeping while I came to pick up the pieces of my life. The little room is back here. I walked down the hall. I passed what had been my bedroom. The door was closed. I continued to the back, to the door that led to the converted storage room. I opened it. There it was. My life reduced to 10 feet by 10 feet. The bed where I had slept for 8 months. The chair where I sat to read because there was no room for anything else. The coat rack with my 4 dresses, a box with my shoes, another with old photos and souvenirs, my hairbrush, my worn Bible. My entire life fit into 2 small suitcases. How sad that was. 65 years summarized in 2 suitcases. I started packing. Loretta came in behind me and looked around. I watched her face change. I watched as her eyes filled with contained fury as she observed the space where I had lived. "My God," she whispered. This is inhumane." I kept folding my clothes, automatic motions, methods I had perfected in these months. Fold, store, minimize, make my existence take up the least amount of space possible. "Do you need help?" Loretta asked. I shook my head. "I can manage. Thank you." But she didn't leave. She stood there, watching, a silent witness to my humiliation. I packed my dresses, my shoes, the box with photos of Darius when he was a baby, when we were happy, when I was just his mother and he was just my son. Before Chastity, before the greed, before everything fell apart. Then I saw something under the bed, an old shoebox. I pulled it out. Inside were the documents I had kept for years, my birth certificate, Darius's birth certificate, my marriage certificate with Hector, the divorce, and something more. The original purchase papers for the house, the ones that proved I had paid every single cent, that this house was mine. My heart started beating faster. "Loretta." My voice came out shaky. "Look at this." I showed her the documents. She took them and began to read them carefully. Her eyes moved quickly over the pages. "Evelyn, this is gold. This proves you bought the house, that it was yours, free of debt, that no one else had a right to it." She carefully tucked them into my suitcase. "Marcus needs to see this today." I finished packing. 2 suitcases, 1 box of photos. That was all I was taking from 8 months in the little room. I stood in the doorway and looked one last time at the space. That place where I had cried so many nights, where I had eaten cold beans because I didn't even have a microwave, where I had felt that my life was worth nothing. "Goodbye," I whispered, and closed the door. We left the room. Chastity was in the living room, sitting on her new sofa, looking at her phone. She didn't even look up when we passed, but I stopped. Something in me broke, or perhaps something mended. "Chastity," she looked up. "I want you to know something. You can keep the furniture, you can keep the new blinds, you can keep everything you changed. But this house, these walls, this roof, I paid for all of this with my sweat, with my hands, and I am going to get it back." Chastity laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. "Good luck with that. The house is in Darius's name. You legally signed the papers. You have 0 right to it." I took a step closer, just one. "Do you know the saddest part of all this? It's not that you took my house. It's not that you made me live in a little room. It's that you convinced my son that it was okay. That is what I will never forgive you for." The words hung in the air. I walked out of the house with Loretta right behind me. I heard quick footsteps. "Mama!" It was Darius. He had finally come downstairs. He was in the doorway, disheveled in wrinkled clothes. "Mama, wait! We have to talk!" I stopped, but I didn't turn around. "There is nothing to talk about, Darius. It's all been said." He came down the stairs. He walked toward me. "Mama, I'm sorry. I didn't..." You didn't think it would be like this? You didn't think it was wrong to leave me living in a small room? You didn't think $200 a month wasn't enough? Or did you just not think about me at all?" Darius opened his mouth, closed it. Tears rolled down his cheeks. "Chastity said you were fine. She said you were comfortable. I believed her." "You believed her because it was easier. Because if you admitted the truth, you would have to do something about it. And doing something meant confronting your wife. It meant choosing between her and me. And we already know who you chose." I put the suitcases in the trunk of Loretta's car. Darius followed me. "Mama, let me fix this. We can do something. You can move back into your room. We can give you more money." "I don't want your charity, Darius. I want my house. I want what was rightfully mine. And if you don't give it to me voluntarily, I will take it back another way." I got into the car. Loretta started the engine. As we drove away, I looked in the side mirror. Darius was standing in the driveway, alone, small, like a lost child. But I didn't feel pity. I only felt determination. We arrived at Marcus's office at 3 o'clock sharp. It was a modern building in the center of the city, marble floors, fast elevators, efficient secretaries, all very different from the world I had lived in these past few months. Marcus received us in his 5th-floor office. He was a man in his 50s, graying hair, a charcoal suit, intelligent eyes that seemed to see more than you told him. "Loretta told me a little on the phone, but I need you to tell me everything from the beginning." He sat behind his desk. Loretta and I sat across from him. I took a deep breath and began. I told him about the house, about how I bought it alone, about Chastity and Darius with the papers, about the broken promises, about the little room, about the $200, about the $8,000 dinner. Marcus listened without interrupting. He took notes in a notebook. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Evelyn, this is a classic case of elder financial exploitation. Possibly fraud, definitely coercion." He pulled out the documents I had brought and read them carefully. "These original papers are crucial. They show clear ownership. Now tell me exactly what you signed when you transferred the house." I closed my eyes, trying to remember. Chastity put 3 or 4 papers in front of me, long sheets with small print. The notary, or whoever he was, told me where to sign. He didn't explain anything. He just pointed to the lines. Sign here, here, here. It all happened very fast, less than 20 minutes. Marcus nodded. "Did they give you copies?" I shook my head. "They said they would mail them to me. They never arrived." Marcus wrote more notes. "They pressured you. They told you that you had to sign immediately?" I thought about that day, about the urgency in Chastity's voice. "Yes. They said there was a deadline, something about taxes, that if I didn't sign that day, I would lose important benefits." Marcus put down his pen. "Lies, all lies, designed to pressure you." He stood up and walked to the window. "Evelyn, I think we can fight this, but I need to be honest with you. It won't be easy. It will take time, probably several months, and we need to find irregularities in the transfer." "What kind of irregularities?" Loretta asked. Marcus turned around. "If the notary didn't properly verify that Evelyn understood what she was signing, if there were no impartial witnesses, if there was undue pressure, if the documentation didn't follow the correct procedures. Any of those things could invalidate the transfer." My heart was pounding hard. Hope. That dangerous word again. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "First, I need you to authorize me to request all the transfer documents from the public registry. Second, I need you to write down everything you remember about that day. Every detail, every word they told you, every promise they made. Third, I need you to think about whether there is anyone who can testify on your behalf. Someone who saw how you lived, how they treated you." I thought, neighbors. There were neighbors who had seen me going in and out of the little room. "There's a lady, Ms. Ethel May Jenkins. She lives next door. She saw me sometimes. She greeted me when I took the trash out of the little room. Once she asked me if I was okay. I told her yes because I was too ashamed to admit the truth. Marcus nodded. Good. We will talk to her. Her testimony could be valuable. He pulled some papers from his desk. This is a representation agreement. If you sign it, I will be your attorney in this case. My usual fee is $300 an hour, but considering the circumstances, I will work for a percentage of the final result. I looked at the paper, then at Loretta. She nodded. Do it, Evelyn. Take back what is yours. I signed the contract with trembling hands. Every letter of my name felt like an act of rebellion, like a declaration of war. Marcus put the document away in a folder with my name on it. Good. From now on, all communication with Darius and Chastity must go through me. Do not talk to them directly. Do not answer calls. Do not reply to messages. Everything through me. Understood? I nodded. Understood. I will start working tomorrow morning. I will request the documents. I will investigate the notary. I will look for any irregularity. In the meantime, you need to be in a safe place, a place where they cannot pressure or intimidate you. I looked at Loretta. She smiled. She already has a place to stay, my house, for as long as she needs. Marcus looked relieved. Perfect. That gives me peace of mind. We left the office with a strange feeling, something between hope and fear. Loretta drove in silence for a few minutes, then spoke. Are you hungry? I know a quiet place that makes the best homemade Southern cooking. I realized I hadn't eaten anything all day, just the coffee this morning. Yes, I'm hungry. She smiled and turned the next corner. The restaurant was small, cozy, nothing like the Gilded Lily. Here, the tables were simple wood, the chairs mismatched, the menu written on a chalkboard. It smelled of stew and fresh cornbread. We sat by a window. An older waitress approached with a genuine smile. What can I get for you ladies? Loretta ordered pot roast with collard greens. I ordered chicken and vegetable soup, simple food, honest food. My husband died 5 years ago, Loretta said suddenly. Cancer, quick and cruel. She took a sip of water. When he died, Chastity offered to help me with everything, the papers, the funeral, the finances. I thought it was love, but now I wonder if she was just seeing how much she could inherit. Her eyes filled with tears. I never thought my daughter was capable of what she did to you. I reached across the table and took her hand. It's not your fault. You didn't make her that way. People make their own decisions. Loretta squeezed my hand. But I raised her. Something went wrong somewhere. Somewhere I stopped teaching her what matters. The food arrived, steaming, aromatic. I ate slowly. Every bite tasted like normalcy, like dignity, like life. Over the next few days, I stayed at Loretta's house. We established a routine. I would wake up early and make coffee. She would come down and we would have breakfast together. We talked about everything and nothing, our lives, our mistakes, our forgotten dreams. In the afternoons, I would sew. Loretta had found my old machine in the little room and brought it over. The familiar sound of the motor calmed me. Marcus called every 2 days with updates. He had requested the documents. He had found the notary. He had discovered irregularities. The notary who signed the papers was suspended last year for professional misconduct. All the transfers he certified during that period are being reviewed. If we find that he acted, every update gave me more hope. One afternoon, Loretta's doorbell rang. She went to open it. I heard voices. One I recognized. Darius. My heart sped up. You can't come in. Evelyn doesn't want to see you. Loretta's voice was firm. Please, I just want to talk to her. 5 minutes. Darius sounded desperate. I went down the stairs. Loretta looked at me. I nodded. It's okay. 5 minutes. Darius walked in. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. He had deep circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes. Mama. His voice broke when he saw me. Thank you for agreeing to talk to me. We sat in the living room. Loretta stood nearby like a guard. You have 5 minutes. Speak, I said without emotion. Darius took a deep breath. Mama, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. Chastity and I have been talking. We want to give you the house back." Silence filled the room. Loretta and I looked at each other. "Give the house back?" I repeated slowly. Darius nodded. "Yes, we want to make things right. Transfer it back to your name. No conditions, no tricks. We just want you to come home." Something tightened in my chest, but it wasn't relief. It was suspicion. "Why now? Why not 2 months ago? Why not when you had me living in that little room?" Darius looked down. "Why?" "Because Marcus is investigating. Because we found out the notary had problems. Because our lawyer told us we might lose the house anyway and also face criminal charges." There it was. The truth wasn't repentance. It wasn't love. It was fear. Fear of the consequences. "So you're not doing it because it's right. You're doing it because it suits you." "Mama, please. I understand you're angry, but this is what you wanted, isn't it? To get your house back. We're offering it to you without a fight, without a long lawsuit." Darius leaned forward. "We can sign the papers this week. Everything goes back to how it was." I stood up. "No, Darius. Nothing can go back to how it was, because before I trusted you. Before I believed that my son loved me more than a house. Before I thought family meant something." I walked to the window. I looked at Loretta's garden, the well-kept flowers, the green grass. "If you give me the house back now, it will be because you decided to have mercy. But I don't want mercy. I want justice. I want a judge to tell you that what you did was wrong. I want it on the record. I want you to face the consequences." I turned to him. "So no, I do not accept your offer." Darius went pale. "Mama, you're making a mistake. If this goes to trial, it could take years. You could lose. And in the meantime, where are you going to live? What are you going to do?" I smiled, a sad but firm smile. "I'm going to live here with Loretta. I'm going to sew. I'm going to get my dignity back. And I'm going to wait, because I have something you don't have. I have right on my side. I have the truth." "Mama," Darius tried to approach me. I held up a hand. "Your 5 minutes are up. Loretta, please show my son out." Loretta opened the door. Darius stood there, looking at me as if he expected me to change my mind. But I didn't yield. I didn't move a muscle. Finally, he left. I heard his footsteps fading away. I heard his car start. I heard the silence he left behind. "You did the right thing." Loretta put her hand on my shoulder. "I know it's hard. I know he's your son, but you did the right thing." I nodded. Even though every part of me ached, even though my mother's heart screamed at me to forgive him, even though everything would have been easier if I had just accepted his offer. But easy doesn't mean right. And I was tired of taking the easy way. That night, Marcus called. "Darius contacted me. He told me he offered to give you the house back and you refused." There was something in his voice. Respect, perhaps. "Yes, I refused." Silence for a moment. "Good, because I have news." I found something big. The notary was not just suspended, he was working illegally. All the transfers he certified during that period are null, completely invalid. My breath caught. "What does that mean?" Marcus laughed, a laugh of victory. "It means the transfer was never legal. It means the house never stopped being yours. Technically, legally, you are still the owner. We just need a judge to confirm it officially, and with the evidence we have, that is practically a guarantee." Tears began to roll down my cheeks, but this time they were tears of relief. "How long will it take?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Hopefully 2 or 3 weeks. I have contacts at the courthouse. I can expedite the process given the urgency and nature of the case. Evelyn, you are going to get your house back, and Darius and Chastity are going to have to answer for what they did." I hung up the phone and collapsed onto the sofa. Loretta sat beside me. She didn't say anything. She just held me while I cried. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange mix of anxiety and hope. Marcus worked tirelessly. Every day brought new news. He had filed the lawsuit. He had secured an urgent hearing. He had subpoenaed Darius and Chastity. He had found more evidence of the irregularities. The case was building like a puzzle where every piece fit perfectly. Loretta accompanied me to every appointment with Marcus. She had become more than my defender. She had become my friend. In the evenings, we would sit in her living room with chamomile tea and talk about life. "You know what the saddest part is?" I told her one night. "I only ever wanted to be a good mother. I just wanted my son to be happy, and somehow that made me an easy target." Loretta nodded. "Love shouldn't make us vulnerable, but it does." Ms. Ethel Mae Jenkins, my neighbor, agreed to testify. Marcus interviewed her at her house. "I saw everything," she told him. "I saw Evelyn going in and out of that little room. I saw her taking out her trash through the back door. I saw Chastity treat her like she was invisible, like she was a burden." Her testimony was recorded. Evidence, proof, documented truth. The hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday at 10 in the morning. I didn't sleep the night before. I stayed awake looking at the ceiling of the guest room, thinking about everything that had happened, all the paths that had brought me here, all the decisions I had made, all the ones I would make after tomorrow. Loretta knocked on my door at 6. "Are you awake?" I opened it. She came in with 2 cups of coffee. "Today is the day," she said simply. "Today is the day," I repeated. We sat on the bed like 2 friends preparing for a battle. "Are you scared?" she asked. "I'm terrified," I admitted. "But I'm also ready. For the first time in months, I'm ready to fight." I dressed carefully. The same wine-colored dress I had worn to the dinner, the one I had worn when everything began. It was symbolic somehow. That dress had seen me at my lowest moment. Now it would see me reclaim my dignity. I styled my hair in a simple bun. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman who looked back was different from the one 2 weeks ago. There was strength in her eyes. There was determination in her jaw. We arrived at the courthouse at 9:30. Marcus was waiting for us on the steps. He carried a leather briefcase full of documents. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," I replied. We entered the building, long hallways with marble floors, wooden doors with gold plaques, the smell of old paper and pending justice. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wooden benches, a table for the judge, 2 tables for the parties. Darius and Chastity were already seated at their table with their attorney, an older man in an expensive suit and a serious expression. When they saw me enter, Chastity turned her face away. Darius looked directly at me. There was pleading in his eyes, remorse perhaps, or just fear. I didn't look away. I stared at him until he lowered his gaze first. "All rise," the bailiff announced. The judge entered. A woman in her 60s, short gray hair, glasses, black robe. She sat behind her bench and looked at the papers in front of her. Case number 5732, Evelyn Beaumont versus Darius Beaumont and Chastity Beaumont. Complaint for nullification of property transfer due to coercion and fraud. Her voice was clear, authoritative, emotionless. "Mr. Johnson," she addressed Marcus, "present your case." Marcus stood up. He spoke for 20 minutes. He explained the entire story, the house I had purchased, the papers they made me sign, the broken promises, the little room, the $200, the $8,000 dinner. He presented the original purchase documents. He presented the recorded testimony of Ms. Ethel Mae Jenkins. He presented the evidence about the suspended notary. "Your Honor," Marcus concluded, "my client was the victim of a deliberate scheme to divest her of her property. She was manipulated, pressured, and abandoned, and all of this was executed by her own son and daughter-in-law, people she trusted implicitly. We request that the transfer be declared null and void, and that the property be immediately returned to its rightful owner." The judge nodded and looked at Darius and Chastity's lawyer. "Mr. Delgado, your turn." The lawyer stood up. He tried to argue that I had signed voluntarily, that I had understood the terms, that I lived on the property without paying rent, that I received financial help. But his words sounded hollow, empty, especially when the judge interrupted him. Mr. Delgado, how do you explain that the notary who certified the transfer was suspended at the time? The lawyer stammered. Your Honor, my clients had no knowledge of that suspension. It was a good faith error. The judge looked over her glasses. A good faith error? Hiring a notary who conveniently happened to be known by Mrs. Beaumont? Pressuring a 65-year-old woman to sign documents without independent legal advice? Chastity whispered something to her lawyer. He shook his head. Darius had his hands clasped on the table. His knuckles were white from the pressure. The judge continued, I have reviewed all the evidence presented. I have read the testimony. I have verified the status of the notary, and my conclusion is clear. She paused. The silence in the room was absolute. Only the ticking of the clock on the wall could be heard. The property transfer made 8 months ago is hereby declared null and void. The property title will be immediately returned to the name of Evelyn Beaumont. Mr. Darius Beaumont and Mrs. Chastity Beaumont have 72 hours to vacate the property and hand over all keys. She hit her gavel against the desk. The sound resonated in my ears like bells of victory. I couldn't hold back the tears. Loretta hugged me. Marcus smiled widely. It was official. The house was mine again. Legally, irrevocably, mine. I looked over at Darius's table. He had his head in his hands. Chastity was crying silently. Their lawyer was collecting papers with sharp movements. They had lost. The truth had won. Furthermore, the judge continued, she wasn't finished. I order Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont to pay Ms. Evelyn Beaumont the sum of $1,600. $1,600 for each of the 8 months they forced her to live on that insufficient amount. This must be paid within 30 days. More gavel blows, more justice served, more compensation. We left the courtroom into the bright midday sun. The air smelled different, cleaner, fresher, like after a storm. Marcus handed me a folder. These are all the official documents. The property title with your name on it, the eviction order, the payment order, everything you need. I took it with trembling hands. Thank you. It was all I could say. Thank you for believing in me. Don't thank me, Marcus smiled. You were the one who had the courage to fight. I was just the tool. He said goodbye and left. Loretta and I stood on the courthouse steps. Do you want to go see your house? She asked. I shook my head. Not yet. Let them have their 72 hours. Let them pack. Let them feel what I felt when they moved me to the little room. It wasn't vengeance. It was justice. There was a difference. That evening, Loretta prepared a special dinner. Nothing extravagant. Roast chicken, salad, fresh bread, cheap but good wine. To justice, she said. To dignity, I said. To women who stand up after being knocked down, we said together. We ate slowly, savoring not only the food, but the moment, the triumph, the vindication. On the third day, exactly 72 hours after the sentence, Loretta and I went to the house. My house. Marcus accompanied us with a locksmith just in case, but it wasn't necessary. The door was unlocked. We walked in. The house was empty. Completely empty. Darius and Chastity had taken everything. The new furniture, the blinds, the appliances, everything. All that remained were the walls, the floors, the ceilings, the structure I had paid for. I walked through the empty house. My steps echoed against the hardwood floors. The echo reminded me of how it used to be when the house was full of life, of laughter, of memories. I went into what had been my bedroom. The walls were bare. They had left marks where pictures had hung, pictures I had bought, photos I had framed. They had taken everything. I went to the kitchen, empty too. They hadn't even left the tiles I had chosen so carefully. They had ripped them from the walls. Only cement patches and empty spaces remained. It was as if they had wanted to erase every trace of me, everything I had built, everything I had been in this house. But they couldn't erase the walls. They couldn't erase the structure. They couldn't erase the fact that this was mine. I went out to the yard. The pecan trees were still there, old, strong survivors. I walked up to the largest one and touched its rough trunk. "We survived," I whispered to it. "Both of us survived." The tree had given pecans for 30 years. It had seen Darius grow up. It had seen good times and bad, and it was still there, just like me. Loretta appeared beside me. "It's empty," she said unnecessarily. "Yes," I replied, "but it's mine, and that's what matters." She smiled. "What are you going to do now?" I looked around, at the bare walls, at the empty spaces, at the infinite possibilities. "I'm going to start over. I'm going to fill this house with things that truly matter. Not expensive furniture, not ostentatious decorations, just simple things, honest things, real things." Loretta nodded. "I'm going to help you." Over the next few weeks, Loretta and I worked together. We bought used furniture, a simple but comfortable bed, a dining table we found at a yard sale, mismatched but functional chairs, simple white fabric curtains, basic plates and glasses. I didn't need luxury. I just needed enough. And for the first time in a long time, enough was more than enough. I went back to my sewing machine. I set it up in what had been my bedroom, now my workroom. I started sewing again, not just for myself, but for others. Ms. Ethel May Jenkins recommended me to her friends. They needed alterations, dresses taken in, pants shortened. I charged fair prices. Not much, but enough to live on, enough to buy food, enough to pay utilities, enough to feel useful. The check for $1,600 arrived on the 29th day, one day before the deadline. I deposited it in my account. I didn't spend it all. I saved half, just in case. The other half I used to buy things for the house. A new blender, frying pans, soft towels, small luxuries that reminded me I was alive, that I had survived, that I had won. Loretta came to visit 3 times a week. We drank coffee at my new table. We talked about everything, her life, mine, how we had gotten here. "Have you heard anything from Darius?" she asked me one day. I shook my head. "Nothing. He hasn't called, he hasn't come by. It's like I've died to him." The words hurt to say, but they were true. "And you?" Loretta asked softly. "Do you miss him?" I thought about the question, about the honest answer. I miss the boy he was, the son I thought I had, but the man he became? No, I don't miss him, because that man was capable of hurting me, and I don't need that kind of pain in my life. Loretta took my hand across the table. "You are stronger than you think." One afternoon, I was sewing when I heard the doorbell. I put down my work and went to open it. It was Darius, standing at my door, at the door of my house. He had lost more weight. He looked gaunt, tired, old for his 42 years. "Mama." His voice was barely a whisper. "Can I come in?" I looked at him. This man who had been my baby, my reason for living, my greatest joy, and my greatest disappointment. "Why are you here, Darius?" I asked, without opening the door completely. "To apologize, to try to explain, to—" He stopped. "To ask for your forgiveness, for real, this time." I hesitated. Every part of me wanted to close the door, to protect myself, to keep myself safe. But another part, the part that had been a mother for 42 years, wanted to listen. "You have 10 minutes. I opened the door. We went into the living room. He looked around at the simple furniture, at the unadorned walls. "You took everything," I said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Chastity insisted. She said they were ours, that we had bought them. Darius sat down on one of the mismatched chairs. I tried to leave some things, but no, that's a lie. I didn't try hard enough. I let her make all the decisions, just like always. "Where is Chastity now?" I asked. Darius looked at his hands. "She left. She said she couldn't be with someone so weak, someone who couldn't even keep his own mother's house." He laughed bitterly. "Ironic, isn't it? She left me because I lost what she forced me to take from you." I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. I only felt sadness. Sadness for all that was broken, for all that couldn't be repaired. Mama, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know I hurt you. I know I was a coward, but I want you to know something. He looked up. His eyes were red. Every night, I wake up thinking about that little room, about how I let you live there, about how I did nothing, and I hate myself for it. I hate myself more than you could ever hate me. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I sat across from him. I don't hate you, Darius. Hate requires energy I no longer have. What I feel is sadness. Sadness because I lost my son. Sadness because you chose a house over your mother. Sadness because I don't know if I can ever trust you again. My voice was calm, without anger, without venom, just truth. But most of all, sadness because I don't know who you are. The Darius I raised would never have done this. I don't know who I am either, he admitted. I lost my way at some point. Chastity had so many dreams, so many plans, and I wanted to give her everything. I wanted to be the husband she deserved, but in the process, I forgot to be the son you deserved. He wiped his tears with the back of his hand. And now I've lost everything. The house, Chastity, you, everything. You didn't lose the house, Darius. It was never yours to lose. It was stolen. There's a difference. I stood up. Your 10 minutes are up. I need you to leave now. Darius stood up too. Is there any possibility? Any way you might forgive me someday? I looked directly at him. I don't know. Maybe with time, with real actions, with true change. But not today. Today it still hurts too much. Darius nodded. He walked toward the door, stopped at the threshold. I love you, Mama. I know I didn't show it. I know I failed you, but I love you. I always have. I always will. I closed the door softly after he left. I leaned against it. The tears finally came. I cried for what could have been, for what would never be, for the broken relationship that might someday heal, or perhaps not. That night, Loretta came for dinner. I told her about Darius's visit. She listened without interrupting. Do you think you'll ever forgive him? She asked when I finished. I don't know, I replied honestly. Forgiveness isn't something you can force. It has to come naturally, with time, with healing. For now, I just want to live my life, rebuild what was broken, find peace. That's wise. Loretta poured more coffee. And what about your plans for the future? I smiled. I want to keep sewing. I want to turn this into a little business. I want to fill this house with honest work and simple life. I want to plant more trees in the yard. I want to wake up every morning knowing I am in my house, my space, my territory. Loretta raised her cup. To new beginnings. I raised mine. To second chances. The months passed like pages in a book that finally had a good ending. Autumn arrived with its golden leaves and cool air. My little sewing business grew. Miss Ethel May Jenkins' friends brought their daughters. The daughters brought their friends. Soon, I had enough work to keep me busy 6 days a week. It wasn't making me rich, but it was making me happy, and that was worth more than all the money in the world. I planted new trees in the yard, orange trees, an avocado, rose bushes by the kitchen window. Every plant was a symbol, a reminder that life continues, that things can grow even after being cut down, that there is always time for new beginnings. Loretta helped me plant the avocado. In 5 years, it will bear fruit, she said, her hands full of dirt. And we will be here to see it, I replied. One November afternoon, 3 months after getting my house back, Darius returned. This time, he brought something in his hands, an old wooden box. I recognized it immediately. It was the box where I kept old photos, pictures of him as a baby, his first day of school, birthdays, and Christmases. I found them in the storage unit where we put everything after we moved out, he said. I thought you'd want them back. I took the box. I opened it. All my memories were there, my life in photographs. Thank you. It was all I said. Darius stood in the doorway waiting. "Can I come in, just for a moment?" I hesitated, but something in his face was different. More humble, more honest. "It's okay. Come in." We sat in the living room. He looked around. "You made it feel like a home again," he commented. "It was always a home," I replied. "It's just that you turned it into something else. But homes have memory. They remember love. They remember life. And little by little, that comes back." Darius nodded. "Mama, I've been going to therapy twice a week, trying to understand how I got to do what I did, how I became someone capable of hurting you like that." I looked at him, truly looked at him. There was something different in his eyes, less desperation, more clarity. "My therapist says I spent years trying to please Chastity, trying to be enough for her, and in that process, I stopped seeing what really mattered. I stopped seeing you. I stopped valuing what I had." Darius leaned forward. "I'm not looking for excuses. I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I'm working on myself. I'm trying to be better." "That's good, Darius," I said honestly. "Not for me, for you. Because you need to live with yourself. You need to be able to look in the mirror without feeling shame." He nodded. "I got a new job at a small company. The pay isn't great, but it's honest. I rented a small apartment, nothing fancy, just the necessary. And for the first time in years, I feel light, as if a weight I didn't even know I was carrying has been lifted." We were silent for a moment. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was a silence of understanding, of two people who had gone through a storm and were now watching the sky slowly clear. "Mama, I don't expect you to forgive me tomorrow or next month or even next year. But I want you to know that I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep trying to be the son I should have always been." "I believe you," I said. And it was true. Something in his way of speaking, in his posture, in his eyes, told me that this time was different. "But Darius, you need to understand something. Forgiveness doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. It doesn't mean you can just walk back into my life as if nothing happened. Things have changed. I have changed. And our relationship, if it's going to exist, has to be different." "I understand," Darius stood up, "and I accept that. I accept that I earned this, that I deserve the consequences of my actions." He walked toward the door. "Can I come visit you from time to time? Not much. Just so you can see that I'm keeping my word. So you can see that I'm changing." I thought about it. "Once a month, Sundays at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you arrive even 1 minute late, I won't open the door." "I'll be here," he promised. And he left. I looked at the box of photos he had brought. I took it to my room and pulled out the photographs one by one. My smiling baby, my boy losing his first tooth, my teenager at graduation, my son at his wedding to Chastity. I was there in all the photos, smiling, proud, loving. I didn't know then what was coming, but I also didn't know how strong I would be when it arrived. Loretta came over that evening, as always. I told her about Darius's visit, about the photos, about his promise to change. "Do you believe him?" she asked. "I want to believe him," I replied. "But I also learned to protect myself. I learned that love doesn't mean being blind, that family doesn't mean accepting anything, that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." Loretta smiled. "You learned well then." We had dinner at my small table. Vegetable soup I had made, bread Loretta had brought, cheap but cheerful wine. "You know," Loretta said, "when I first met Chastity, I thought I had failed her as a mother, that I had done something wrong for her to be capable of what she did to you. But my therapist helped me understand something. Sometimes people make bad decisions regardless of how they were raised. It's not always the parents' fault." "It's hard not to feel guilty," I admitted. "I constantly wonder what I did wrong with Darius. Where did I go astray?" Loretta shook her head. "You raised a good boy. The decisions he made as an adult were his, not yours. You gave him love. You gave him values. You gave him everything you had. What he did with that was his choice." Her words comforted me in a way I hadn't expected. On the first Sunday of December, exactly at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I heard the doorbell. It was Darius, punctual. He brought simple flowers from the market, white daisies, not expensive roses, not ostentatious arrangements, just simple, honest flowers. "I thought you would like them," he said shyly. I took them. "I do." I put them in a vase with water. We sat in the living room. We talked for half an hour about his work, about his therapy, about small, unimportant things. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't talk about what was broken. We just existed in the present for 30 minutes. The months passed that way. Darius came every first Sunday, always punctual, always with simple flowers, always respectful of the time I gave him. Little by little, the conversations became easier. Little by little, I began to see glimpses of the son I remembered. Not the same. He would never be the same, but perhaps someone better, someone who had learned, someone who had grown through pain. In the spring, a year after getting my house back, Loretta and I were in the yard. The trees we had planted were growing well. The old pecan tree had yielded its best harvest in years. The air smelled of flowers and fresh earth. "Are you happy?" Loretta asked me suddenly. I thought about the question, about all that had happened, all that I had lost, all that I had gained. "Yes," I replied, with surprise in my own voice. "I am happy. Not in the way I expected, not in the way I planned, but I am happy." I looked at my house, my yard, my hands calloused from honest work, my simple but genuine life. I lost my son for a while. I lost my house. I lost my dignity, but I got them back. Maybe not exactly as they were, but I got them back, and that makes me stronger. Loretta put her arm around my shoulders. "Do you know what I admire most about you?" she asked. "It's not just that you fought. A lot of people fight. What I admire is that you didn't let bitterness consume you. You didn't let the pain turn you into someone cruel. You found a way to keep being yourself despite everything." Her words filled me with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. That night, I sat in my living room, in my house. I drank coffee in my favorite mug. I looked out the window at the yard, where the fireflies were beginning to glow, and I thought about the entire journey, from that horrible dinner at the Gilded Lily to this moment of perfect peace. It had been painful. It had been difficult. There had been moments when I wanted to give up, but I didn't. I stood up. I fought. I won. And now, sitting in my own house, in my own chair, drinking my own coffee, I could say with total honesty something I hadn't been able to say in a long time. I looked at the stars beginning to appear in the sky. I looked at the trees swaying in the gentle breeze. I looked at my simple but genuine life, and I whispered the words that closed one chapter and opened another. I am free. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.